Greetings everyone. I am not looking my best, but that's okay. I'm here for a reading update, but also like a life update and just telling you guys what's been going on in my life, and because it's been a while. And let's see, I think I'm going to start with the big and then kind of hone in on the me or the micro. So the big level is it's really been hard for me to not I wouldn't even call it doom scrolling what I do with Blue Sky, because there are so many fascinating people on that app who teach me things about science, about whatever. And of course, my main list is I have two lists. One is just people I follow, and the other is called Doge Takeover, which is a very big list of all kinds of people, because there's just so many brilliant people keeping track of the hellscape that we are now in. And I think hellscape's a good word for it. And the problem is, it's not, I mean, there's many problems with it, of course, it's a hellscape. But so for me specifically, the issue is I do want to keep abreast of everything. And, I didn't really know that much about the impoundment thing from Nixon and all the stuff that's, it's hard to know. That's part of what they're counting on, is that people won't care to look into the fact that they're wreaking havoc and have no idea what they're really doing, and it's all lies, deception. And so the people on Blue Sky who do know more about it, there's so many good Substacks and sort of somewhat independent news outlets that, like, I'm always trying to keep my inbox low on the email because I've been subscribing to so many Substacks, it's growing, and I don't really have time, of course, per usual, to peruse them all. And a lot of time I just spend back on Blue Sky keeping up with things. And so on the one hand, I can't let that go because I do want to stay informed. I do want to be educated on the mess in a more detailed way than just listening to NPR. NPR has been very, very frustrating for me because, I mean, and I haven't even looked at New York Times. I looked at them more. Actually, I read more New York Times or just glanced at the headlines during Biden. Now I'm kind of like, when it's a good thing on Blue Sky that posts me there, I might look at it. It's not all bad, but it's just very, very hard to not be consumed by negative feelings towards what is happening to this country and to the world. Tomorrow's the German election, and it's just very hard to keep going. I think, I think it is hard. I mean, we are keeping going, and there are occasional. There are good pages of what you can do, and I think I do need to sort of pull back a little bit and focus on the self-care, but it does sort of feel indulgent sometimes to be so just, I can't, to just step away from finding out more. And the problem is so much is happening again and again and again. Hegseth fired the general, and the DOD stuff. It's just so much is happening, which is of course part of the strategy. I know, I've been reading up on it. And now the whole, I'm just going to say the word Krasnov story, which sounds plausible and which is really, really frightening. Yeah, anyway, so that's the world stuff. And it is kind of impacting a little bit. So I think the teaching is going well, but I'm teaching three sections of a language class, and I do love my students really much, and I really love the classes, but it's been stressful to me to teach 3 back-to-back with only a quarter of an hour in between, which seems like plenty of time. But if you're like me, who needs to decompress, and I need to go up to my office and sit there for a little bit and eat a little cracker and cheese, just kind of like back-to-back 3 times is almost as bad as 4 times. I don't even know how I did the 4 times. And in the meantime, I have put in my request for a reduction of my contract. But here's the big news for me. Apparently, I was in danger of being made redundant this year, and it's not probably for next year already. So that in May, I would just be out of a job because just stuff happening in our field, and the people thinking we don't have enough students to teach. Anyway, and I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. And there were the people who are visiting contracts, and then there's me, a lecturer who is only on a contract if they need me. And I have been forced to realize that I may not be needed. So I'm not, as you can tell, it is sort of surprising, but it's also I'm ready to retire in many ways, or I could be ready to retire. And so the situation I'm in right now is, I think I'm telling myself this officially, I will probably just be teaching for one more year. So May 2026, as opposed to when I wanted to retire, which was 28, so not that much of a difference. But I will teach probably just one more year and then retire. And the problem for me, someone with all my chronic issues, is healthcare. I will be able to pay my own way with the healthcare for about 6 months apparently. And then what do I do? And as my husband said this morning, I was like, well, what if they get rid of ACA, the American Affordable Care, or whatever it's called? I think the one, Obamacare. And then I guess then he said, well, then you buy your own, or you become one of the many people who just, when they get sick, go to the emergency room. And I looked him in the eye and I said, that's when I'm moving to Germany. If it gets to be that bad, with or without him, I mean, we'll figure it out. And then it's sort of like, who knows? I mean, even a year from now, who knows what's going to happen? It's just such a fill in the blank show right now. It's just very up in the air. And so the colliding of my own situation, which isn't very dire, but it's sort of like, okay, I was almost out of a job. I was almost being retired, and now I have maybe one more year. I can live with that, but it's I sort of realized it. That it was getting that close to me because of, we're just, they on the one hand, they want us to teach bigger classes. On the other hand, we don't have that many students. So, the writing was on the wall. So I guess I shouldn't be that surprised about that. And so that's that. That's my update. And so I'm sort of muddling through. Oh, the other issue with the teaching is, on top of the 3 classes, I have 2 independent studies. One of them's going fine, I think. The other one, it's just one student, and I underestimated I thought it would be okay to just sort of chat and decide on a weekly basis what we read, but it's really more because of the quietness, or this is a student who's somewhat reserved, which is fine. There's a sort of, I have to sort of, whenever someone's quiet on the other side, you have to kind of be the energetic one. You have to be the pusher and the mover and the organizer of things. And doing that on top of all my other work has been more stressful, or just more of a commitment than I thought it would be, which is fine. You live and learn, and not a big deal. And I guess we can sort of transition into the reading. The big reading that we have done so far is Kafka. We read some little article about to do with Kafka's presence in the canon, so to speak, as someone who wrote in German, was Jewish, lived in Prague, spoke Czech, spoke Yiddish, and wrote in German. So the whole kind of the layers of whatever you want to call it, identity issues. The identity layers are very interesting with Kafka. And so we've been reading the first big fictional thing we read. We read the Metamorphosis, so the Great Bug Story, or is it a cockroach? We don't know. There's all kinds of speculation as to what kind of bug. In German, the word is Ungeziefer, which is a sort of what's the word in English for Ungeziefer? Vermin. I don't know. He's not a rat. He's definitely an insect. Point being, I think that's the point with Kafka, is you spend endless time reflecting on exactly what kind of insect he is, which he kind of wants you to do. But then he's like, oh, please don't draw the insect. Like, he wants to leave it ambiguous. He wants to leave you kind of like putting you in this dilemma of overthinking things. The whole thing is about overthinking in a certain sense. It's actually a useful term for what the consciousness of the poor bug man. The whole story is about him overthinking and both getting things wrong and right about his weird, really I think the family dynamic is so negative and in a certain sense toxic before he was a bug, and you could almost argue that's one of the reasons why he became a bug. It's a solution to a problem. The whole family was sort of kind of against him, and he was, even though he's the one that's working. Anyway, I have all these, there's so many theories you can go, so many avenues of interpretive talk you can go down with Metamorphosis, but it is a fantastic work of fiction, and his world is just, it's its own thing. His way of writing, his sort of the veneer of politeness and overly formal language that he uses to address the family stuff, but then sort of underneath that level of formality, there's all kinds of sort of trieb, Freudian stuff going on in terms of sexuality and hate and rage and yeah, it's just fantastic. It's fantastic, but it's also kind of time consuming. This is a copy of the book that includes a lot of commentary and interpretive stuff. And it goes in all different directions, quoting other people. And so it's been wonderful to read it again, but it's also been kind of in my head a lot. And especially in these times when, call it Kafkaesque. That's one thing you could call it, for sure. The not knowing of the deliberate sort of lack of clarity as to the situation feels very, very Kafkaesque, I have to say. And so that's been going quite well, reading Kafka again. And then my personal reading, I'm moving right into it. It's only been 10 minutes. I'm quite concise today. That's good. So the first book I sort of wanted to just touch on, because I finished it a while ago, so I won't say that much about it, is the beautiful novel by Kate Briggs, The Long Form, which I read in conjunction with Tom Jones, which, have I talked about finishing Tom Jones? I'm not going to do it right now. I just don't feel like it. It was a mountain to climb. It was good, but it was boring. I mean, it's just long. He's very wordy. And because I was reading it to finish it at the end, for some reason, listening to Clarissa, as I always say, was enjoyable on another level because I just really loved Clarissa. And Tom Jones, I didn't love as much. It's fine. It's like you could see what was going to happen a mile away. That's not why you read it. And then reading this along with it, it did kind of push me to finish Tom Jones. And what's interesting about this work is how accessible it is, even though it's sort of highly theoretical. And she has a lot of secondary works that she looks at the back. And I love it. I loved it. It was very a soothing, calming read about her relationship, a day in the life of this baby and its mother, and then her thoughts about life in general and her own life. And beautiful, beautiful book that I kind of found it easier to go along with than Little Art, the one about translation. But that was mainly because I just didn't have the time to devote to the translation one. The novel was sort of more accessible to me, at least. So that's been a while since I finished that. And in the meantime, what was I listening to back then? I may have missed, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. The next listen that I'm fairly close to finishing is Stendhal, 19th century French writer. This is published in 1836, The Charterhouse of Parma. And he himself, I haven't done a deep dive, had connections to Italy or did sort of stuff in Italy. I'm looking at his biography here. Born in 1783, died in 1842. And he did spend time in Italy, and this is kind of like a novelization of depiction of the ins and outs of court life in Parma, in other places. It's good. It's very plotty. There's a lot of plot. There's a lot of what happens. It's sort of like page. But not exactly like page turner, although some of it's good. Sometimes I'm like, the plot kind of like, oh, this is interesting. And then it's like, okay, and then another interesting thing happens. But I guess the main person is this young fellow, this handsome young fellow called Fabrice. And I do remember one of my favorite sections so far was planes. He was sort of very young, and in this sort of young way, he wanted to partake in the Napoleonic Wars. This is when it takes place. And so he rushes off to France, and he's very young and very naive, but his interactions with the people on the edge of a big battle were really wonderful and really well done. And you could sort of tell that Stendhal has had experience with the French army and with the Napoleon stuff. And I remember when I read The Red and the Black when I was a teenager and really loving it, more than this, I think, which is his most famous work. And that's about a guy who, as I recall, was really, really pro-Napoleon and sort of had to hide that, his love of Napoleon. And this is more, so that's just part of it, though. And then he comes back and he has all these things happen to him. And he has his sort of mentor lady who he's sort of related to, who's also one of the main characters. And it's all very sort of, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of sort of overly done emotionality that sort of it's a little hard to sort of, you don't get sort of, it's not subtle, is what I'm trying to say here. I keep saying sort of, because it's sort of this, it's sort of that. But it's good as an audio, and I wanted to tell you who the audio person is. Of course, now I forget, is it Ballerini, Edward Ballerini, I think? Ballerini. And he's my second favorite audio person. So we all know that, what's his name? Oh my gosh, it's Simon Vance is my favorite. That's right, Simon Vance. But now Edward Ballerini I know because he's the one that reads the Knausgard books, the audio of Knausgard. And he does a fantastic job. For me, Knausgard is that voice, which is kind of strange. And he's the one reading this one. So it's like, okay, good. I like this. And he does a really good job of reading. He has a really nice voice. And that's part of the allure of these audios. I do like them a lot. And it's just a way for me to read 2 books at a time, because, well, 2.5 if you count the Kafka. And I'm reading so much, so many Substacks, and glancing at them, and articles from places. There's something called The Bulwark, and then there's Wired has been really good. Wired is another source. And then these people on Blue Sky who are doing a great job of tracking the awful, awful things that are happening to this country. It's basically being, I don't know if it will ever be the same. I don't want, and then let's move into my big read, because that's kind of like interesting how that intersects with the hellscape too, which is this book right here. I decided to, based on hearing about it from other people, I wanted to read Steve Markley's The Deluge, because I thought it would be it's topical enough to be interesting and not too hard for me in terms of being theoretical as we progress through the semester. And it's, of course, a climate change novel about the awfulness of climate change, which, just a basic question here is, how do all the tech bros, the oligarchy that is taking over this country, what do they think is going to happen with climate? I mean, even they have to deal with it. And so I'm sort of left wondering, do they even, what's their take on it all? I mean, when everything collapses, that will sort of impact them too. Have they, I guess that's where Mars comes in? I don't know. Which is stupid. I don't know. If you have any ideas, let me know. But so this is a really interesting novel, and I'm only about 100 and something pages in, 153, a bit longer, because what I did was, because look at this. This is too heavy for the likes of me. And even though I don't like reading on my Kindle, I bought it on Kindle so I can just more easily carry it around and read it. And it's such a sort of, in the beginning I was looking up things because I'm so lacking in the science. Like I was looking up the concept that Tony is doing research on in the beginning, the what's it called? He does research on the methane hydrate, this idea. And I looked it up, and now of course I've forgotten it again, but it's like it gets caught in these molecules in the ocean, and then it gets released. And that's part of what leads to the warming. And so, yes, clathrates and under changing conditions of temperature and pressure, and there's other things on Blue Sky. So when someone sort of, and there's another journal that I've subscribed to just because it's like easy science for someone who's interested but not knowledgeable about it. It's Nautilus. So when you describe it to me in a kind of, I don't mind it being a little bit jargony, but it has to be a story, or it has to be sort of narratively clear to me what's going on. I actually do find it all fascinating. Even like things like, there was something about, the other day I got interested in seaweeds, which I'm really not interested in this stuff, but maybe I could be. So it's and in a way, being interested in those kinds of things is a kind of perhaps a healthy way to step back from the hellscape, I think. Because you feel better when you read about these things and become knowledgeable about something, the attention that you have to give to it, as opposed to always just trying to get on top of the information that is being thrown at us in this way. But I still want to be on top of it to a certain degree, because I have lost faith in just going about my day and looking at the New York Times and what's it called, NPR. And so the other day we watched John Oliver. He's pretty good, but he sort of was also coming at it from sort of, I knew everything that he was talking about, USAID and everything, and there was still, but he was pretty good. I mean, he was in sort of summarizing the awfulness of it all. But anyway, back to The Deluge. And so we have here a novel that right now it starts in the year a little bit earlier, 2013, and it's moving forward in time quite rapidly. And there was years in 2022. So it's really, you know, this contemporary novel, but it's sort of an alternative reality, which makes it so strange in terms of the politics. So in this novel, Trumpism was vanquished. But in light of the awfulness of the climate disaster that is coming our way, that even that kind of level of politics seems not exactly irrelevant, but kind of a blip in terms of the novel. And I'm already in 2028, and now it's like they're going to be probably electing a woman of color, but she's Republican, but she's sort of like very not Trumpy. So, you know, to the point where she might get the endorsement of the main climate people in the book. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but that's where I'm at, exactly where I'm at in the book. And so it's just strange to be reading a book where you didn't even have to deal with Trumpism, and we're in the midst of dealing with that catastrophe. So, but in a way it's good, because it's like, well, you know, looming behind all of this stuff is the big one, the deluge. And so, you know, and there again, who knows what's going to happen in the future? This idea, we have no clue. We have really no clue what's going to happen. And part of me just wants to read my books. But part of me is, I don't know what to do. That's why we're all like that, aren't we? We all don't know what to do. And at some point, you just have to retreat. I still think my husband's onto something with his devoting his time to the garden. But for me personally, with my sort of, you know, there is a sense of, I may have to leave. I may have to go to Germany. I mean, if really, not to say that Germany's doing that much better, but at least it's not, well, we don't know yet. I mean, I don't think what's her name is going to be anything close to being chancellor. It'll probably just be the CDU guy. We'll have to see. I mean, however much Elon loves that lady, the AfD lady, it's not going to happen, I don't think. I hope not. I mean, they're going to make it happen. Who knows? But then there's the whole Russia card. It's a mess. I'm sorry to be so like weird at the end, but that's how I feel. But I'm doing okay. My health is fine. We're all cozy. The thing about my future is a bit of a shock to the system, but it's not too much of a shock. And I just think I need, as I said, I woke up this morning and I said to Bill, I'm officially letting everyone know that I'm going to be retiring in May of 26. And I'll tell the chair that too. And I think in a way I should be glad, because you just can just move on and, you know, reshuffle the one person less to worry about, because we're in a position where we just don't quite have enough to offer people to teach. And so if I'm off, if I'm away, it'll make it easier. And it looks like the ADA thing will go through, so my last year will be quite, it will be less pay, but also less to do. So that'll be nice. And that'll help me in kind of creating a new type of life if everything doesn't go. Like, there's a part of me that's almost doesn't really want to get on a plane right now because of that stuff. So, you know, just so it's just weird how we're all impacted in this situation. Let me know how you're all doing. Thank you. Hello to new subscribers. This is what this channel is, me chatting about my reading, my eclectic reading, and giving you life updates, and then cat stuff. And I mean, I still do my stupid little journal that makes me happy with my little stickers, which is very sort of infantile on the one hand. On the other hand, it's like coloring. It's a very soothing, calming activity for me. So, you know, sometimes I talk about my stationery. That's where we're at. Thank you for watching, and I will be back fairly soon. We'll see. Whatever, you know, whenever I feel like I need to show you something, I will do that. And thank you all for watching and subscribing. I'll see you later. Bye.